So I want you to think about this scenario. Have you ever walked out of like a really high pressure work meeting?
Oh, you mean the brutal kind.
Exactly. The ones where you have to lay down the law, maybe organize a really chaotic team, or defend some tough decision to a hostile board.
Right, where you're just firing on all cylinders.
Yeah. And then maybe 20 minutes later, you find yourself just completely snapping at a loved one.
Over something totally trivial.
Right. Yes. Your partner asks you a perfectly innocent question like, what do you want for dinner? And you respond with the exact same harsh, clipped tone you were just using on your marketing director.
It is so incredibly common. Almost universal, really.
It's embarrassing. And honestly, if it happens enough, it can be deeply damaging to the people we actually care about. You can't seem to turn off that boss energy.
Well, it's because you physically step through the front door of your home, but psychologically and physiologically, your nervous system is still standing at the head of that boardroom table.
So I haven't actually transitioned.
Exactly. You haven't transitioned at all.
And then you spend the rest of the evening apologizing, trying to explain that you aren't actually mad at them, you're just stuck in this weird gear.
Right, and trying to dig yourself out of that hole.
I always just assumed this was a byproduct of modern stress. But to really figure this out, we are doing a deep dive today into a fascinating psychological manual.
Yes, it is called the Relationship Archetype Form Method.
And it is so important to note right up front, this isn't, some compilation of internet life hacks or generic mindfulness tips.
Far from it. This entire framework, every specific technique, every psychological layer we are going to explore today is an original method invented and developed entirely by psychologist Dr. Gandhi Lanka.
Right. It's a highly structured, scientifically grounded system.
Yes, for what he calls rapid role switching.
And I have to say, reading through Dr. Lanka's work, it completely changed how I view my own behavior.
Powerful stuff.
But before we get into how to actually do this rapid role switching, I look at words like psychological manual and archetype, and I really have to ask, is this therapy? Like, are we doing deep psychoanalysis on ourselves here?
That is exactly the boundary we need to map out right away. Dr. Lanka is very explicit about the ethical and medical boundaries of his original method.
Okay, good to know.
This is a tool for self-awareness, communication training, and achieving ordinary role flexibility in your daily life. It is absolutely not psychotherapy.
So no diagnosing ourselves.
Right. It is not a substitute for psychiatric care. If a person is dealing with, say, psychosis, severe mania, untreated trauma, dissociative symptoms, or any loss of reality testing, these exercises should be strictly avoided.
That makes total sense. We're talking about everyday communication here.
Exactly. Furthermore, Dr. Lanka emphasizes that this method must never be used to fake an identity or to manipulate people or foster emotional dependency.
Right, so it's not an instruction manual for being a sociopath who constantly shifts personalities to get what they want.
Precisely. The ethical core of Dr. Lanka's method is about gaining greater awareness and taking responsibility. It's about using the various roles required by life consciously.
Rather than being possessed by them.
Yes, you want to deploy the role, not have the role deploy you.
Not being possessed by them.
Yeah.
I really love that framing. When I was reading that part of Dr. Lanka's manual, I kept thinking of the human mind like a smartphone.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Yeah, so when you open a really complex, demanding app, let's call it the competitive professional app, it takes up a massive amount of your brain's RAM.
Right, it uses up all your processing power.
Exactly, and it drains your battery. Now, if you go home and try to open the empathetic family time app without actively closing that professional app first, your system is going to lag.
It might even crash.
Yeah, because the competitive app is still running in the background, just draining your empathy battery and totally ruining your evening.
It's a highly functional analogy.
Dr. Lanka's method feels like an elegant way to force quit the apps you no longer need.
To force quit that app, to clear what Dr. Lanka calls role residue, we have to start at the foundational thesis of his work.
Okay, lay it on me.
His central idea is a major paradigm shift for most people. He argues that human personality isn't just a collection of abstract ideas or thoughts in your head.
Wait, if it's not thoughts, what is it?
Personality is expressed through complete, integrated relationship forms.
A relationship form. Okay, I need you to unpack that, because normally if I want to be a better listener, I just tell myself, okay, be a better listener. I think it as a thought. Why isn't that enough?
Because a role isn't just an attitude. A relationship form is an entire, integrated pattern of existence.
Meaning what, exactly?
It includes your perception, your emotional state, your physical body position, your vocal tone, your physical proximity to the other person, your timing, and your intention.
Oh, wow. So it's everything all at once.
Think about it this way. I can say the exact same sentence to you right now. I can say, I need you to do this. Now imagine I drop my voice to a low, warm, reassuring register. I need you to do this. That is one form.
Yeah, that sounds nice.
Or I can clip my words sharply, raise my volume, and project tension. I need you to do this.
Ooh. Yeah, okay. The first one made me feel like we were a team solving a problem together.
And the second one?
The second one made my heart rate jump, and I immediately felt defensive, like I was in trouble.
Exactly. The words were absolutely identical. The thought that a task must be completed was identical.
But the delivery was totally different.
The difference was the relationship form from which those words were delivered. Your nervous system reacted not to my vocabulary, but to the integrated pattern of my voice, my implied posture, and my energetic intensity.
So if I'm stuck in that role residue, if I have that background app running, I can't just think my way out of it. I have to change the entire form. But that begs a massive question. Why do we get stuck in the wrong forms in the first place?
That's the core issue, isn't it?
Yeah. Why does my brain insist on running the boss app when I am literally just standing in my kitchen trying to chop onions?
This is where we get into the psychodynamic meaning of our inner roles.
Psychodynamic meaning, okay.
From the psychodynamic viewpoint that Dr. Lanka synthesizes into his method, our behavior is deeply shaped by inner conflict. Human beings are complex.
We definitely are.
One part of you desperately wants approval and love, right? While another part craves autonomy and independence.
Oh, absolutely.
One part wants to obey and be safe. Another wants to dominate and be in control. These inner positions act as role energies within us. And here is the crucial breakthrough. They are protective.
Wait, protective. So if I'm someone who constantly falls into a people-pleaser role, even when it actively hurts me, I'm not just being weak, my brain is actually running a defense mechanism.
Yes, your brain is actively running a bodyguard protocol.
A bodyguard protocol, I love that.
Let's look at the inner critic, for example. We all have that harsh internal voice.
Mine is very loud.
That voice is often trying to protect you from future public humiliation by punishing you privately first.
Oh, wow.
It thinks, if I beat you up for this mistake now, you won't make it in front of the boss tomorrow.
That makes an uncomfortable amount of sense.
Or take the rebellious role.
Yeah.
It might be protecting your dignity in a situation where you feel chronically small or invisible.
And the people-pleaser role.
It is protecting your fundamental sense of attachment. It is terrified of abandonment. These aren't inherently pathological or bad traits. They are brilliant survival strategies your psyche developed.
But they become a problem when they take over.
Exactly. They only become troublesome when one of those roles unconsciously seizes control of the steering wheel in every single situation, regardless of whether it's actually appropriate or safe to do so.
That reframes so much of the standard self-help advice out there. Usually you just hear, stop being a people-pleaser, or just crush your inner critic.
But Dr. Lanka is saying that if you try to crush a protective mechanism, it's going to fight back.
Like pushing a beach ball underwater.
Yes. If you just try to suppress a defensive role, it will sabotage you. You might try to force yourself to act humble in a meeting, but if that defensive protective expert inside you is still boiling underneath, it's going to leak out.
How so?
You'll end up using a passive-aggressive tone or rolling your eyes or hoarding information. This is why Dr. Lanka insists that inner dialogue must come first.
So you have to talk to it.
Before you try to switch into a new, healthier role, you must actually speak to the active inner role and ask it what it fears.
You actually have a conversation with it.
Yes. You acknowledge it. You say, I see you're trying to protect me from looking stupid right now. Thank you. But I need you to step back so I can just listen for a minute.
You negotiate with the instinct rather than trying to amputate it.
Precisely.
That makes so much sense. Okay, so we have the psychodynamic angle. Our roles are trying to keep us safe. But Dr. Lanka also weaves in archetypal psychology, right? Concepts from Carl Jung.
Yes, he does.
How does that fit into a modern, practical manual?
It fits beautifully because Carl Jung taught that the human mind naturally organizes experience through vast symbolic patterns.
Right, archetypes.
Exactly. The roles we play in society, the healer, the elder, the child, the teacher, the warrior, these aren't just arbitrary job titles or social labels we invented 100 years ago.
What are they then?
They are deep, ancient, symbolic patterns of human imagination. They've been repeated across all of human history, in our myths, our tribal structures, in our family dynamics.
Meaning they are hardwired into us, like software that comes pre-installed on the hardware of the human brain.
That is a perfect way to describe it. They carry tremendous emotional force.
Give me an example.
Well, if I tell you to imagine the archetype of the humble learner sitting at the feet of a wise teacher, your mind instantly understands the entire required relationship dynamic without me needing to hand you an instruction manual.
Oh, yeah, I can picture it perfectly.
You understand receptivity, you understand the transfer of wisdom, you understand the respect involved.
I don't have to calculate it. It's just an immediate felt sense.
Exactly. These archetypes act as organizers for our nervous system. So Dr. Lanka uses these symbolic templates deliberately in his original method.
So we are purposefully tapping into that pre-installed software.
Yes. When you use his techniques, you aren't pretending to be some mythical hero. You are using the functional, recognizable image of an archetype to quickly gather your posture, your tone, and your intention into one compact, usable form.
Which naturally brings up a concern I hear all the time when we talk about behavior modification.
Which is what?
When people hear phrases like role switching or putting on a form, the immediate visceral reaction is, isn't that just faking it?
Yes.
If I'm deliberately choosing my posture and my tone to play the teacher, isn't that being inauthentic? Isn't it just manipulation?
That is a critical pushback, and it gets to the heart of role theory and social performance. Dr. Lanka addresses this head-on.
What does he say?
Role flexibility is not dishonesty. It is relational intelligence.
Relational intelligence. I like that.
Think about someone you deeply respect. A truly mature, grounded person speaks differently to a grieving patient than they do to a demanding professor, or a frightened child, or their best friend at a bar.
Right. If you spoke to a grieving patient the way you speak to your best friend at a bar, you'd be a monster.
Precisely. That person isn't being false by adapting. They are accurately reading the ethical and emotional demands of the scene. The ethical function of role switching is to match your expression to truth, to your duty, and to the context.
So it's about being appropriate, not being fake.
Yes. It only becomes manipulation if you use a role specifically to flatter someone, to dominate them unfairly, or to hide from your own accountability.
Okay, I see the difference.
If you put on the humble student role just to manipulate a senior into doing your work for you, that is an unethical use of the method. But if you use it to genuinely open your mind to correction, that is profound authenticity.
I really like that distinction. I mean, I am a different version of myself with my mother than I am with, my podcast producer, but both are 100% authentically me. Exactly.
Now, here's the part of Dr. Lanka's work that completely blew my mind. The embodiment piece, the mind-body loop.
It is arguably the most immediate practical layer of his entire method.
Because we usually think of the mind and body as separate, right?
We often treat the brain like a computer sitting in a jar, totally disconnected from the flesh. But Dr. Lanka points out that thought is not separate from the body.
So they are constantly talking to each other.
You cannot simply think your way into a new psychological role if your physical body is actively anchoring your nervous system to the old one.
So if I'm trying to be the equal, warm friend to someone who is hurting, but my shoulders are creeping up around my ears, my jaw's clenched, and my breathing is shallow and fast.
Your body is screaming combat mode or threat response.
Oh, wow.
A collapsed chest, a tight jaw, and a defensive darting gaze will simply not produce genuine warmth or humility, no matter what words are coming out of your mouth.
Because the body is overriding the words. Yes. Your nervous system is constantly reading your own physiology. If your hands are clenched, your amygdala assumes there is a threat.
Wait, my brain is taking cues from my own body.
Yes, through biological feedback loops involving the vagus nerve and the autonomic nervous system. This is the hard science of embodiment.
That is wild.
Posture, breath, gaze, and voice are not just cosmetic display features. They are the actual physical levers that help your nervous system access the chosen psychological role.
So by changing my posture, I am literally changing my mind.
When you deliberately drop your shoulders and adjust your spine into an upright, relaxed position, you are making a psychological decision physically concrete.
I am literally doing it on the mic right now as we talk. I just dropped my shoulders and exhaled, and I genuinely feel my heart rate slow down a beat. It's wild how fast it works.
It is immediate.
But Dr. Lanka has a major safeguard built into this, right? What he calls the observing center. Because if these forms are so powerful, how do I make sure I don't just lose myself in them?
That is the cornerstone of his psychological safety protocol. You must never become lost in a role.
How do you prevent that?
You never say to yourself, I am the teacher. You say, I am bringing forward the teacher form, or I am allowing the student form to lead this conversation.
I am bringing forward. That tiny linguistic shift is so powerful, it creates distance.
Exactly.
It means the role is a tool I am picking up to do a job, not an identity I am trapped inside. Which brings us to the 3 critical verbs that run through all of Dr. Lanka's work.
Notice, enter, return.
Notice, enter, return. Let's break that down.
You notice the active form you are currently in. You deliberately enter the required form, and when the interaction is done, you return to your observing center.
And that last part is key, right?
That conscious return phase is exactly what prevents the role residue we talked about at the very beginning of the show. It's the psychological equivalent of closing the app.
Okay, so we have thoroughly mapped out the why. We know why we get stuck. We understand the protective nature of these roles, the power of archetypes, and how our body locks us in.
Now for the application.
Yes, now I want to get into the how. How do we actually execute this rapid role switch in the real world? Dr. Lanka has built a remarkably detailed, modular architecture for this. There are 10 specific layers to making a complete switch.
Yes, and these 10 layers move logically from internal thought out to external reality. It's important to understand the full progression before we talk about the shortcuts.
Let's do it. Walk me through the anatomy of a complete switch. Layer 1 is situation reading.
Before you change anything, you have to map the terrain. You pause and ask, where am I? Who is this other person? What is the hierarchy here? Am I the senior, the junior, or a peer?
You're just assessing the reality of the room.
Right. What is my ethical duty in this specific moment? And crucially, what form am I currently carrying from my last interaction?
Right, acknowledging the residue. Then we move inward to layer 2, inner dialogue. We touched on this earlier, but this is where you actually talk to that protective mechanism.
Precisely. You name the active self. Let's say you're carrying a highly critical, micromanaging form. You ask it what it wants.
And it might say, I don't want us to fail.
You want to make sure no mistakes are made so we don't look bad.
Yeah.
You thank it for trying to protect the project, and then you ask it to step back. Then you deliberately choose the new relationship form you actually need, perhaps the collaborative colleague.
Which leads right into layer 3, archetypal visualization. And this part sounds almost like sports psychology, where athletes visualize the free throw before they take it.
It is very similar. You create a simple, functional image of the required form in your mind. But Dr. Lanka gives a strict instruction here: do not make the image grandiose.
So no visualizing myself as a superhero.
You don't visualize yourself as a glowing, mythical god of collaboration. You make it human-sized and relational.
What does that look like?
You might just picture the physical posture of a good colleague, or even a specific type of comfortable clothing that represents that energy to you. You mentally step into that image, keeping your observing center active.
So we've done the mental prep, now we hit the physical world. Layer 4, posture and breath.
This is where you adjust the spine and the physiology. If you need to enter a leadership form, you bring your spine into vertical alignment.
And if you're trying to be comforting.
If you need to be a comforting friend, you allow the posture to go soft and open, and you change the breath.
Breathing is huge here.
If you are angry, your breath is high in your chest. You have to push it down into the diaphragm, grounding your feet to the floor to prevent emotional flooding.
Okay, layer 5 is gaze and facial tone. This fascinated me because I never think about how my eyes are behaving unless I'm actively trying to win a staring contest.
Gaze is highly nuanced and culturally deeply ingrained. If you are interacting with a senior authority figure, Dr. Lanka notes your gaze should be respectful and attentive, but non-challenging.
Meaning you don't glare at them?
Right. If you are dealing with a junior, your gaze should be clear and steady, but you must ensure it isn't humiliating or piercing.
And with family.
If you are with family, you soften the muscles around the eyes to create emotional availability while retaining your adult boundaries.
Incredible. Layer 6 is voice modulation. This is the pitch, the tempo, the volume.
Yes. An authority form, for example, inherently uses fewer filler words. It relies on a decisive pause to command the room.
And a caregiver.
A feeler or caregiver form uses a much calmer, low to mid tone, speaking at a slower, more rhythmic tempo.
Which flows right into layer 7 language templates. This is about choosing the actual vocabulary.
Because words carry implicit social contracts. You do not use casual, slang-heavy friend language in a formal workplace hierarchy unless you were explicitly invited to do so.
Right. Hey, bro doesn't work with the CEO.
Conversely, you don't use rigid teacher-like language when your partner is venting about their day. You have to use phrases appropriate to the specific relationship form.
Okay, now we're locked and loaded. We hit layer 8, the entry statement.
This is a short, internal, highly practical declaration. You say inwardly to yourself, I now enter the respectful learner form for this conversation.
Do you say it out loud?
No, you don't say it out loud. You don't make a big dramatic show of it. You just make the mental statement and let the body follow the command.
Layer 9 action from the form. We actually start talking.
But you only speak once the form is actually felt in the physical body. And once you engage, you use your observing center to watch the other person's reaction.
You're calibrating.
Yes. Do they relax? Do they become defensive? Are they pulling away? The form is not a rigid cage you lock yourself in. It's a flexible tool. You calibrate your intensity based on their real-time feedback.
And then, the most important part for preventing that dreaded residue, layer 10, exit and return.
You finish the interaction, you take a deliberate physical exhale, and you mentally step out. I release this role and return to my observing center.
Just shaking it off.
You check yourself for any lingering residue before you open the door to your next meeting or walk into your house.
Looking at these 10 layers, it really does feel like building a character in a complex role-playing video game. You're constantly adjusting the sliders. Okay, I need a little more posture here. I need to tweak the vocal template there. Let's soften the gaze by 10%.
That's a fun way to look at it.
But instead of building an elf or a warrior in a fantasy world, you're fine-tuning your real-world empathy, calibrating your real-world authority, and establishing your actual functional boundaries.
I love that comparison. And I know what you might be thinking right now.
Yeah.
10 layers. If I'm getting an angry phone call from a client, or my kid is screaming in the grocery store, I don't have 10 minutes to stand there adjusting my spine and visualizing archetypes.
Exactly. I'll get fired or my kid will run into traffic. It sounds great on paper, but how is this remotely practical in the chaos of daily life?
Dr. Lanka anticipated this perfectly. That is why he breaks these 10 layers down into 3 core temporal practice protocols. You do not have to do the full 10-layer deep dive every single time.
Okay, thank God. Let's look at these shortcuts. Protocol 1, the 30-second doorway practice.
This is your rapid, real-world reset. You literally use it while your hand is on the doorknob or while the phone is ringing. You pause for just 30 seconds.
What do you do in those 30 seconds?
You name the form you are currently carrying. Okay, I'm carrying the defensive expert right now.
Yeah.
You name the required form, I need the equal friend. You change just one physical body cue. Maybe you consciously drop your shoulders and take one deep breath, and you prepare one correct opening phrase. That's it. You enter the room.
That is incredibly practical. Just identifying it and dropping the shoulders is probably enough to shift the energy 80% of the way there.
Exactly. Now, Protocol 2 is a 3-minute complete switch. This is for when you have a little more time, maybe sitting in your car before walking into the office.
So a bit more involved.
This is slightly deeper. You might actually take out a notebook and write down the active role. You silently thank it. You do the quick visualization of the new form. You mentally step in. You deliberately adjust your breath and voice. You rehearse 2 opening sentences out loud in your car, and then you go have the interaction.
And finally, Protocol 3, the 10-minute deep rehearsal. This isn't for quick moments. This is for the heavy lifting.
Right. This is for difficult, high-stakes, or historically toxic relationships. If you have a boss who always triggers your defensive mechanisms, you use Protocol 3 the night before.
How does that work?
You map the automatic dysfunctional pattern that always happens. You dialogue deeply with your internal resistance. Dr. Lanka suggests you might even draw or write out a detailed description of the desired relationship form.
Oh, getting creative with it.
You practice the posture and voice aloud in your living room. You role-play the sentences you want to use. And crucially, after the real meeting happens, you write an after-action correction.
Analyzing what happened.
You evaluate what worked and where you slip back into old residue.
Okay, we have the underlying theory, we understand the mechanics, and we know the 10 layers. Now we need to know what exactly we are switching into. Which brings us to the core of Dr. Lanka's manual, the catalog of relationship forms. He has mapped out 17 of them.
Yes, 17 distinct, trainable archetypal patterns. And before we explore them, it's vital to remember Dr. Lanka's overarching instruction. These are not fixed identities.
They are tools.
They are universal templates. Every single one of these 17 forms requires you to negotiate your base instincts, manage your fears, and actively avoid ego inflation.
The ego loves to get involved.
For every form, Dr. Lanka provides a strict warning against its shadow. which is what happens when the form is misused or distorted by ego.
Let's start exploring this library. The first group focuses on learning and authority, how we handle hierarchy. And Form 1 is the respectful student or learner.
The essence of Form 1 is pure receptivity. It is curiosity and an absolute willingness to be corrected without collapsing your dignity.
And the shadow.
The shadow, to watch out for the defensive manifestation of this form, is falling into an inferiority complex, using flattery to manipulate the teacher, or developing a fearful inability to speak up when you don't understand.
So how do we embody this? What's the posture for Form 1?
Your spine should be upright, but not pushed aggressively forward into the other person's space. Your shoulders are relaxed, with a slight forward attention, leaning in just a bit.
And the voice changes too, right?
If I'm using the learner form, my voice is softer, slower, and I'm asking far more questions than making statements. I might say, "Sir," or "Madam, I wanted your guidance on this specific problem."
Oh, wow. Just hearing you shift into that tone, I immediately feel less defensive. I feel like you're genuinely making space for my answer.
That is the power of the embodied form. The internal entry statement you use is, "I enter the learner form receptive, dignified, and ready to understand."
And the exit.
Which is crucial so you don't stay in that submissive posture all day, is release, excessive submission, return to adult center.
Let's look at the exact opposite of that. Form 2, the clear teacher. The essence here is clarity, responsibility, and the structured transmission of knowledge to someone else. But the shadow of the teacher form, man, we all know this one too well.
Yes, the shadow of the teacher is superiority, endless lecturing, impatience, and the narcissistic need to prove to the room exactly how smart you are.
I've had professors like that.
It's when you stop caring if the student learns, and only care that they know you are the master.
To avoid that shadow, the posture of the teacher needs to be highly structured. A steady spine, an open chest, and a facial expression that is clear, but explicitly kind.
And the voice takes on a clean articulation. The rhythm becomes stepwise. I might say, "Let us understand this concept, step by step."
I feel like I need to pull out a notebook. The entry statement here is, I enter the teacher form clear, responsible, and non-humiliating. That last word is so important. Non-humiliating.
It absolutely is.
And the exit. Release the teaching tone before meeting seniors or family, because nobody wants to be married to a professor who grades their dishwashing.
Exactly. Now, we escalate the hierarchy even further. Form 3 is the senior or responsible authority.
How is that different from a teacher?
This goes beyond just teaching facts. The essence is decision-making, strict accountability, boundary setting, and protecting the standards of an organization or family.
And the shadow.
The shadow here is pure domination, rigidity, egoic command, or becoming emotionally cold and tyrannical.
The physical embodiment of the authority form is so grounded. Vertical spine. Your hands are still there as absolutely no restless, nervous movement or fidgeting.
The voice is firm. It uses very few words. It relies heavily on decisive pauses to let the weight of the instruction land. I would look at you and say, "This is the standard we need to maintain."
It's a velvet hammer. You feel the weight of it, but it isn't screaming.
Yes.
Entry, I enter responsible authority, firm, fair, and accountable. Exit, release command energy.
The necessary counterpart to that is Form 4, the cooperative junior. The essence is disciplined execution of tasks, rapid learning, and accurate reporting back to the senior.
The perfect employee.
But the shadow is blind, unquestioning obedience, hidden resentment where you secretly hope the project fails, or feigned helplessness so the senior will just do the work for you.
The posture here is highly attentive. You reduce any defensive gestures, no crossed arms, no leaning back in the chair.
The voice is concise and factual. No emotional storytelling, just, "I will complete that task and update you by 3 o'clock.
Entry, I enter the cooperative junior form, disciplined, alert, and dignified. Exit, return to independent adult functioning. Now, skipping ahead slightly in Dr. Lanka's numerical order, there's another form that relates to this hierarchical group. Form 14, the devoted learner before mentor. The essence is reverence, deep trust, and respect for a lineage of learning.
Which raises a question I get constantly when teaching this material. How does Form 14, the devoted learner, actually differ from Form 1, the respectful student? Don't they sound exactly the same?
I was just going to ask that. If I'm learning, right? What is the difference?
Dr. Lanka makes a very precise, very important psychological distinction here. Form 1, the respectful student, is for ordinary functional learning. It's what you use when you ask a senior colleague how to use the new accounting software, or you ask a mechanic to explain what's wrong with your car engine. It's practical.
Okay, so what's 14?
Form 14, however, is about reverent respect for a mentor, a spiritual guide, or a deep historical lineage of wisdom. It involves the matters of the soul or profound life direction. Because of that depth, the shadow risk of Form 14 is infinitely more dangerous than Form 1.
How so?
The shadow of the devoted learner can rapidly slip into cult-like hero worship. It can lead to total emotional dependency on the guru or mentor, resulting in a complete loss of your own critical discrimination and moral compass. You surrender your agency.
Ah, that makes sense. That is dangerous.
That is exactly why the physical posture Dr. Lanka dictates is a balance, a soft spine to show reverence, but strictly upright to show you are still an independent entity.
You don't just collapse at their feet.
The entry statement explicitly guards against this shadow. I enter the devoted learner form reverent, awake, and discerning. You must stay awake. You do not go to sleep at the wheel. And the exit is paramount. Release idealization, keep discrimination, and adult judgment.
Release idealization. That is brilliant. Okay, so we've mastered the hierarchy of the workplace and the classroom. But what happens when you go home? The tools that make you a great boss will make you a terrible partner.
That is so true.
Let's look at the group of forms focused on connection, care, and healing. How do we switch off the hierarchy and turn on our shared humanity? Starting with Form 5, the equal friend.
The essence of the equal friend is warmth, mutuality, shared humor, and non-hierarchical listening. There's no boss here.
But there's a shadow here, too.
Yes, the shadow of the friend form, and this ruins a lot of friendships, is over-familiarity, descending into toxic gossip, giving unsolicited advice when they just want to vent, or carrying a hidden sense of superiority.
I am definitely guilty of the unsolicited advice shadow. I want to fix their problem instead of just being their friend.
It's a common trap.
For the physical posture of a friend, relaxed shoulders, you want your physical body to be at the exact same vertical level as the other person. If they sit on the floor, you sit on the floor. An open, unguarded face.
The voice operates at a natural, unforced tempo. It reacts organically. You simply say, tell me freely, I'm listening.
Entry, I enter the friend form, equal, warm, and non-superior. Exit, release casualness before formal duty. You don't want to carry that casual friend energy into a performance review with your employee 10 minutes later.
Exactly. Next is Form 6, the son or daughter form. The essence of this archetype is the capacity to receive affection, express gratitude, and feel a sense of belonging in a family system.
And the shadow.
The shadow here is severe regression. It's when a 40-year-old goes to their parents' house for Thanksgiving and instantly turns into a sulky, reactive 15-year-old, completely avoiding their adult responsibilities.
Oh man, we have all seen that happen. The posture to prevent that regression requires maintaining a soft, loving face, but physically retaining your adult grounding. Keep your feet planted.
The voice is gentle, and your replies should be slower. You don't snap back. You say, I understand what you're saying, Mom.
Entry. I enter the son-daughter form warm, grateful, and still adult. And the exit ensures you don't stay in that childlike space. Return to adult boundaries, which naturally leads to the reciprocal, Form 7, the parent or caregiver.
The essence here is profound, providing emotional nourishment, physical protection, and acting as a secure emotional container for someone who is vulnerable.
And the shadow, I imagine it's helicopter parenting.
It is a massive trap for many well-meaning people. The shadow is control disguised as care. It is overprotection that smothers the child. It is the need to constantly rescue people to make yourself feel important, ultimately playing the martyr.
Control disguised as care. That is a heavy sentence. To avoid that, Dr. Lanka says the caregiver's posture must feature an open chest but an incredibly stable lower body. You're acting as a secure container for their emotions, not a cage they are trapped in.
The vocal tone must be warm and deeply steady. It cannot be rushed. You cannot sound like you are trying to hurry them through their pain. You just say, I am here with you.
Entry. I enter the caregiver form protective, warm, and boundaried. And the exit is vital for parents or nurses who burn out, release over responsibility. You cannot carry another human being's pain forever.
Following that is Form 8, the doctor or healer. The essence is high technical competence combined with compassion, emotional steadiness, and ethical service.
What's the shadow for the healer?
Retreating into cold, robotic professionalism to avoid feeling anything, developing a grandiose savior complex, or succumbing to profound emotional exhaustion.
The posture is highly grounded, with a compassionate but analytical face.
The voice is calm, using simple language, no jargon meant to confuse. And it is reassuring without ever making false promises. You say, I'm going to explain this procedure to you clearly.
Entry. I enter the healer form steady, compassionate, and truthful. Exit. Release patient responsibility. When the shift is over, you have to let them go. Which brings us to Form 9, the patient or help seeker. And this is where I really have to push back on Dr. Lanka's framework.
Okay, what's the issue?
The essence of this form is an openness to receive help and honest reporting. But isn't it incredibly profoundly hard to step into a patient form without feeling inherently weak or diminished? Everything in our culture teaches us that needing help or being sick is a vulnerability that we should hide. It feels like stepping into this form requires giving up your dignity.
That is a very perceptive challenge, and it is exactly why Dr. Lanka's precise wording in the manual is so vital. Look closely at how he defines the essence of the patient form. He instructs the user to maintain trust without helplessness.
Trust without helplessness.
Yes. If you look at the shadow of the patient form, it is either collapsing into complete dependency and panic, or it is the opposite, feeling so much shame that you display a hidden noncompliance.
Like lying to your doctor.
Exactly. You lie to the doctor about how much pain you are in because your ego is trying to protect itself by pretending it doesn't need help. Dr. Lanka explicitly instructs that the patient form must retain its dignity. The posture is relaxed but attentive. There is no false toughness, but there is also no collapsing into a puddle.
So you remain a sovereign individual, you're just acknowledging a specific need.
Exactly. The voice should be clear, honest, and humble. You don't minimize it, and you don't catastrophize it. You look at the healer and simply state, this is the pain I am experiencing right now.
That distinction, reporting honestly without false toughness or dramatic collapse, is actually incredibly liberating. The entry statement perfectly captures it. I enter the help seeker form honest, receptive, and responsible. You remain a responsible adult. Exit, return to self-care agency.
Let's move to the final major group in the library. These are the forms used for professional navigation and boundaries. This is how you navigate complex, high-stakes, or potentially combative social terrain without losing your head. Form 10 is the leader or organizer.
The essence of the leader is providing clear direction, prioritizing chaos, and maintaining group morale under intense pressure. The shadow of the leader is basically every bad boss you've ever had: control addiction, deep impatience, or what Dr. Lanka calls theatrical dominance.
Yeah, the boss who yells and throws things just to prove to everyone that they are the boss.
Exactly. To counteract that theatricality, the physical posture must be incredibly grounded, feet firmly planted, head steady. And Dr. Lanka notes use clear pointing gestures only when absolutely necessary to direct attention. Do not wave your arms around frantically.
The voice is brief, it is firm, it is highly organized, and above all, it remains perfectly calm under pressure. Our primary priority for the next hour is this.
Entry. I enter the leader form calm, clear, and accountable. Exit. Release leadership intensity when entering equal conversation. Because if you take your team out for a beer after the crisis is solved, you must exit the leader form.
Form 11 is the negotiator or diplomat. The essence is tact, impeccable timing, and the protection of the long-term relationship while still addressing very hard facts.
What's the shadow there?
The shadow is sliding into people-pleasing, passive aggression, or manipulative avoidance, where you just lie to keep the peace.
The physical posture of a diplomat is fascinating. It is open but contained. You physically angle your body so you are not directly squared off chest to chest with the other person, which signals confrontation. You stand at a slight, non-threatening angle.
The voice is measured. It is entirely non-accusatory. You frame things as shared inquiries. May we find a workable middle path on this issue.
Entry. I enter the diplomat form tactful, clear, and balanced. Exit release over accommodation. Form 12 takes this a step further into crisis management, the conflict calmer.
The essence is active de-escalation, emotional cooling of a highly volatile room, and the protection of everyone's dignity. The shadow here is the suppression of vital truths just to stop the yelling or enforcing a false, resentful peace.
If you walk into a room where people are screaming, the posture of the calmer must instantly drop the energy. Lower your shoulders dramatically. Create a stable, wide base with your feet. Keep your palms open and visible, relaxed at your sides. Absolutely zero sudden, jerky movements.
The voice operates at a low to medium volume. You use very short, simple sentences. You breathe audibly. Let us all slow down for just a moment.
Entry. I enter the calmer form, grounded, slow, and respectful. Exit. Return to assertive action if calmness becomes avoidance. Because sometimes a conflict actually needs to happen and you can't just calm it away forever.
Which brings us to Form 13, and honestly, reading the manual, this is the one I think most people will struggle to master, the boundary keeper.
It is notoriously difficult. The essence is absolute self-respect, clean refusal, and establishing firm limits without resorting to aggression. The shadow is reacting with harshness, punishing the other person with the silent treatment, or crumbling into guilt the second you say no.
How do you visualize it?
When I try to visualize the boundary keeper, I picture their voice like a brick wall that is entirely covered in soft velvet.
I like that image.
It is firm, it is solid, it is absolutely undeniable you are not getting through or over this wall, but because it is covered in velvet, it isn't actively trying to scratch or hurt the other person.
That is a phenomenal metaphor for what Dr. Lanka is trying to achieve with this form. The posture is upright, but not rigid. Your hands must be perfectly still. Do not fidget, do not wring your hands, do not cross your arms defensively.
The voice is totally flat, clear, polite, but completely devoid of negotiation. And crucially, there is zero over-explanation or justifying. You simply say, I cannot agree to that.
That's it. You don't add 10 reasons why. Entry: I enter the boundary keeper form. Clear, calm, and non-aggressive. And the exit is profound. Release hardness once the boundary is communicated.
Do not carry that velvet brick wall into your next conversation with someone who did nothing wrong. We have 3 final forms in the professional section. Form 15, professional colleague. Essence, shared responsibility. Peer-to-peer exchange of information. Shadow, silent competition. Hoarding information or a hidden superiority complex. Posture is balanced and neutral friendly.
The voice is collaborative. Let us coordinate our schedules to get this done. Entry: I enter the colleague. Form equal, professional, and collaborative. Exit, release, comparison.
Form 16, public speaker. The essence is capturing presence, projecting authority, and purposeful communication to a group. The shadow is crippling performance anxiety. Or the flip side, pure narcissistic grandiosity where you fall in love with the sound of your own voice.
The posture requires an expanded, open chest, a very stable stance. Your eyes must smoothly include the entire room, not just stare at your notes.
The voice increases in volume, projection, and dynamic variation. You use strategic, dramatic pauses to control the pacing. The absolute key point to remember is this.
Entry: I enter the speaker form clear, present, and useful. Exit, release performance identity. You cannot act like you are on stage when you go home to your family.
And finally, Form 17, the silent witness. This is a very unique one.
The essence is pure observation, total non-reactivity, and deep inner steadiness. It is what you use when a situation is unfolding, and you simply need to gather data without interfering.
And the shadow.
The shadow is emotional avoidance, dissociation, or a passive, smug superiority where you watch people fail and do nothing.
Posture is comfortable, relaxed stillness, an open, soft awareness, a long, slow exhale.
Very few words are spoken. If any, you just internally note, I am noticing what is arising in this space. Entry: I enter the witness form aware, steady, and free, as return to action when action is required. You cannot be a witness forever. Eventually, you must participate in life.
That is the complete catalog, all 17 forms. But as Dr. Lanka wisely points out, simply reading the manual and knowing these 17 forms intellectually is completely useless.
Exactly.
You can't just read about the boundary keeper and expect your nervous system to magically comply when your toxic mother-in-law starts criticizing your parenting. Knowledge without practice is dead.
The nervous system requires repetition to build new neural pathways. That is why Dr. Lanka provides exact, highly structured training regimens. He explicitly warns against trying to use this method for the first time in your most emotionally explosive relationships.
So you don't try the boundary keeper on your abusive ex on day 1.
You start small. He outlines a 7-day starter program. Let's walk through what a week of doing this actually looks like. Day 1 is pure observation. You don't try to change anything. You just carry a notebook and write down 3 specific times you notice role residue happening in your day.
Okay, that's doable.
Day 2, you practice internal dialogue only. When you feel a defensive reaction, you internally name the active self and ask it what it is afraid of. Day 3, you introduce visualization. You sit quietly and create simple functional mental images for the learner, the teacher, and the friend.
Day 4 gets physical. You practice the posture in a mirror. You literally practice adjusting your spine, your shoulders, and your facial expressions for different forms.
Day 5, you bring in the voice. Dr. Lanka suggests actually recording yourself on your phone. Read the exact same sentence using the teacher form, the friend form, and the boundary keeper form, and listen back to hear how wildly different your pitch and tempo actually are.
Oh, that would be eye-opening.
By day 6, you attempt one real-world, low-stakes 30-second doorway switch. Before you walk into the coffee shop, drop your shoulders and enter the friendly, polite customer form. Day 7 is review and reflection. What changed in your body? Did the barista react differently to you?
Once you survive the first week, you graduate to the 21-day consolidation program. Week 1 of that program is about hyper-awareness of your own active and residual forms throughout the day. Week 2 focuses intensely on deliberate entry smoothly, calling up the visualization, posture, and voice on command. Week 3 emphasizes the clean exit, focusing entirely on shedding the form before moving to the next task.
To guide this intensive practice, Dr. Lanka's manual provides 3 highly specific worksheets. These aren't just blank pages, they are structured algorithms for your brain. Worksheet 1 is the role residue map. It asks, what was my previous interaction? What psychological form carried forward? What specific relational problem did that residue cause? And what form was actually needed in that moment?
Worksheet 2 is the inner dialogue sheet. This is where the heavy psychodynamic lifting happens. If I'm doing this worksheet, I have to ask myself some really uncomfortable questions. Let's say I snapped at a junior colleague. The worksheet forces me to ask which inner role was active. Maybe it was my panicked perfectionist. What is that perfectionist trying to protect? My reputation. What does it need to hear from my observing center to calm down? And finally, which relationship form is required to repair the damage?
And worksheet 3 is posture and voice calibration. You literally map out the exact spinal position, facial tension, breath depth, vocal tempo, and the specific opening phrase for the form you were trying to master. Now, to show exactly how this plays out, Dr. Lanka outlines 8 common switching situations. And we are not going to rush through these because this is where the theory hits the pavement. Let's create some real-world scenarios to explore these.
Excellent. Situation 1. After instructing juniors before meeting a senior, imagine you are a head nurse who just spent 20 minutes aggressively directing a team of young residents through a chaotic emergency. You are in deep authority leader form. 5 minutes later, you have to go to the chief of medicine's office to ask for a budget increase.
If you walk into the chief's office carrying that teacher authority residue, your posture is going to be rigid, your voice is going to be clipped, and you are going to sound incredibly arrogant and demanding to your boss. You will get denied.
Precisely. To survive that transition, you must use a doorway practice. Dialogue with that commanding nurse self, thank it for handling the emergency, firmly ask it to step back, and deliberately enter Form 1, the respectful learner or cooperative junior. You physically soften your gaze, lower your vocal volume, and drop the rigidity in your spine before you knock on the chief's door. Situation 2. The exact reverse. After being corrected by a senior before teaching juniors, let's say you just got chewed out by the CEO for a missed quarterly target. You feel small, humiliated, and defensive. Your wounded, fearful student role is highly active. You walk out of that office and immediately have to run a strategy session for your own marketing team.
If you carry that wounded residue, you're either going to be weak and uninspiring to your team, or worse, your ego will try to compensate by being excessively harsh and punitive, essentially passing the CEO's humiliation downward onto your innocent team. You have to pause in the hallway. Dialogue with that shame. Assure your inner self that you are safe, and consciously enter Form 2, the clear teacher. Rebuild your vertical posture, open your chest, and bring kindness back into your articulate voice.
Situation 3 is a classic burnout scenario. After hospital or high-stress duty, before speaking to family, you are an EMT or a crisis counselor. You have been in the highly detached, competent healer or witness form for 12 hours. You drive home and your spouse wants to talk about how frustrating their day was.
If you stay in that professional clinical form, your spouse is going to feel like they are talking to a robot. Your professional detachment will be perceived as emotional coldness and a lack of love. In the driveway, you must dialogue with your deep fatigue. You mentally take off the clinical armor and you enter Form 5, the equal friend, or Form 7, the caregiver. You must intentionally bring warmth and musicality back into your voice and soften the analytical tension in your face.
Situation 4, the reverse. After a deeply emotional family conversation before professional duty, you just had a tearful argument with your teenager at breakfast. You are swimming in parent-caregiver emotional turmoil, you drive to work, and you have to negotiate a ruthless vendor contract.
The family residue will make you overly empathetic, distracted, and soft in the negotiation. You have to sit in your car, mentally place the family role safely in a box to deal with later, enter Form 11, the diplomat, or Form 10, the leader. Ground your feet physically to the floorboards of your car, pull your spine straight, and strip the emotional vulnerability out of your vocal tone.
Situation 5. When a friend asks for advice. Let's say your best friend calls you, crying about a bad breakup.
Your instinct might be to instantly jump into Form 2, the teacher, or Form 8, the healer, and start lecturing them on attachment theory and giving them a 10-step plan to get over it.
Which is incredibly annoying when you just want to cry.
Exactly. You must consciously check that instinct, enter Form 5, the equal friend, and only offer the teaching if they explicitly say, "What do you think I should do?"
Situation 6. When a subordinate makes a mistake, an employee misses a massive deadline that costs the company money. Your internal protective mechanism instantly flashes to hot, punitive anger. The pure, dark shadow of the authority form wants to crush them.
You must take 10 minutes in your office before calling them in. Dialogue with your anger. Acknowledge that the anger is trying to protect the company's standards, but tell it that screaming will only cause the employee to hide future mistakes. Enter the pure, unshadowed teacher authority form. Firm, extremely clear, relying on decisive pauses, but fundamentally non-humiliating.
Now, situation 7. This is the one I find most terrifying. When a senior is wrong, but the hierarchy still absolutely matters. Imagine you are a junior engineer and you realize the lead architect's bridge design has a fatal flaw. If you don't speak up, people die. If you speak up the wrong way, you get fired and ignored and people still die. How do you handle this?
This is a high-stakes tightrope walk, and it requires a masterful, deliberate switch into Form 11, the diplomat. If your ego takes over and you enter the rebellious expert form, you will attack the senior, their ego will flare up, you will be punished for insubordination, and the error will remain. If you enter the fearful student form, you will stammer, fail to make your point, and the error will proceed.
So the diplomat form threads the needle.
Yes. You entered the diplomat form. You use a non-threatening, angled, physical posture. You use low ego language. You strip all accusation from your voice. You present the completely evidence-based reality, focusing entirely on the shared goal of a safe bridge, rather than attacking the ego of the senior architect. "Sir, I was reviewing the load calculations to ensure we meet your safety standards, and I noticed an anomaly we need to look at together."
Brilliant. The ego is bypassed completely. And the final scenario, situation 8, when emotionally pulled into rescuing someone. You have a sibling who constantly makes terrible financial decisions and comes to you crying for money.
The instinct is to fall into the shadow of the caregiver over responsibility. You just give them the money to stop their crying, playing the rescuer. You must catch that residue and enter the caregiver combined with the boundary keeper. Your voice remains warm, but the velvet wall comes down. "I love you, and I am here to help you build a budget, but I will not give you cash." You help, but you emphatically do not take over another adult's responsibility.
Walking through those real-world scenarios makes the power of this method undeniably clear. But before anyone listening pauses this episode and runs out to try and manipulate their boss, we have to look at Section 7 of the manual, the master formula, and the ethical safeguards. Dr. Lanka is very, very serious about the ethics of this.
He has to be, because these techniques are psychologically potent.
Yeah.
He reiterates the ethics and grandiosity warning we touched on earlier. This entire method relies on human-sized functional imagery. If you use this psychological technology to actively exploit someone's vulnerability, to inflate your own narcissistic ego, to avoid accountability for your own mistakes, or to suppress and silence another person, you are committing a fundamental ethical violation.
And there is a real physiological safety warning here too, right?
Yes. If practicing these inner dialogues or form switches causes you severe anxiety, panic attacks, dissociation, or an inability to function normally in your life, you must stop immediately. You drop the psychological exercises and return to ordinary physical grounding. Use simple language, go for a walk, eat a meal, get some sleep, and focus on your real-world physical responsibilities. Psychological technique is meant to support and enhance life. It should never replace it.
Dr. Lanka also introduces a concept here called the hierarchy of adequacy, which is a huge relief. You don't need to execute all 10 layers perfectly or do a 10-minute deep rehearsal for every single interaction in your life.
Exactly. Sometimes just doing the inner dialogue for 5 seconds is enough. Sometimes just dropping your shoulders is enough. Use the shortest, simplest, most adequate version of the method that produces an ethical, calm relationship alignment. Don't overcomplicate it if a simple breath will do the trick.
And to synthesize all of this, the layers, the forms, the ethics, Dr. Lanka provides the complete 12-step master formula. We aren't going to just read this as a dry list. Let's visualize going through this sequence in real time. Imagine you are standing outside the door of a hospital room, about to visit a deeply sick friend, and you just got off a stressful work call.
Step 1. You physically stop in the hallway. You take one deliberate deep breath. Step 2. You name the previous role residue. I am vibrating with the stress of that aggressive sales call. Step 3. You identify the active inner voice and its protective purpose. My inner competitor wants to keep moving fast so I don't lose momentum. Step 4. You thank it and ask it to step back. Thank you for driving the business, but I need you to wait outside this room.
Step 5. You name the relationship reality. The person in this room is my equal friend, and they are currently vulnerable. Step 6. You choose the correct relationship form. I need Form 5, the equal friend, combined with elements of Form 7, the warm caregiver. Step 7. You visualize the archetypal image of that form. I picture a warm, deeply grounded presence sitting calmly in a chair. Step 8. You step into it mentally while rigorously maintaining your observing center. I am bringing forward the warm friend form now.
Step 9. You make the physical shift. You adjust your posture, releasing the tension in your spine. You adjust your breath, slowing it down. You soften your gaze and the muscles in your face. Let your hands fall open. Step 10. You silently calibrate your voice. You prepare to lower the volume, slow the tempo, and inject warmth into the pitch. Step 11. You open the door and use one relationship-matching opening phrase. It is so good to see you. Step 12. An hour later, when you leave the room, you step back into the hallway, you physically exhale, you exit the form, and you return to your neutral center before driving back to work.
Walking through it like that, it feels like a genuine superpower. It is so doubly comprehensive. And looking at the architecture of it, the scholarly grounding of Dr. Lanka's manual is just undeniable.
Absolutely. To establish the scholarly context, it's clear that Dr. Lanka's manual stands firmly on the shoulders of psychological giants. He brilliantly synthesizes Freud's psychodynamic understanding of ego organizations, how we unconsciously negotiate instinct, fear, and defense mechanisms.
He pulls in Carl Jung, obviously.
Yes, he deeply integrates Jung's theory of archetypes and the collective unconscious, turning abstract mythology into practical tools. He utilizes the brilliant sociological theories of Irving Goffman, who wrote about the presentation of self in everyday life and how we navigate social stages. And perhaps most importantly, he grounds all of this classical theory in cutting-edge, modern, embodied cognition research, the hard neurological proof that our physical posture, our breathing patterns, and our physiology actively, biologically dictate our psychology. It is rigorously scientific synthesis.
Okay, let's bring this all together. What Dr. Lanka has given us in the relationship archetype form method is, ultimately, profound freedom. A mature, functional person is not a rigid, monolithic personality that reacts the exact same way to every stimulus. A mature person is a conscious, observing center, capable of deliberately bringing forward the exact right form for the exact right moment. You can teach a subordinate without sliding into arrogance. You can learn from a master without feeling small or inferior. You can firmly lead a team through a crisis without dominating or humiliating them. And you can be an open, vulnerable friend without losing your inherent dignity.
It replaces the chaotic, messy damage of unconscious reaction with the absolute clarity of ethical, embodied choice.
So here is your call to action for today. I want you to look at your life and identify just one piece of role residue you're carrying right now, just one background app that is draining your battery. Is it the stressed, hypervigilant worker? Is it the anxious, hovering parent? Is it the defensive, wounded expert? Notice it. And I challenge you to try the 30-second doorway switch before your very next interaction. Name the residue. Visualize the form you actually need to be. Consciously drop your shoulders, adjust your breath, and step through the door.
And as you practice that physical shift, I want to leave you with a final, broader question to ponder. We have spent this entire deep dive discussing the profound biological importance of physical posture, eye contact, breath, and subtle vocal tone in anchoring our human relationships. But we are living in an increasingly relentlessly digital world. We communicate primarily through text messages, quick emails, and sterile Slack channels. These are mediums that violently strip away our posture, they silence our voice, and they blind our gaze entirely. If we are rapidly losing the physical, biological anchors of our relationship archetypes, what invisible, unanchored digital forms are possessing us through our keyboards without us even realizing it?
Are we becoming permanently stuck in a digital role residue we can't even feel in our bodies anymore? That is something to seriously think about the next time you forcefully hit send.